Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your man Timswain, and I am here with a special guest,
Crystal Boateng. I am a mother of two and a first-time author of Efia the Ashanti Princess, A Visit to the Motherland.
I said, hey, have a very special guest today. I'm excited about this. I got a wonderful gift from someone. Didn't quite know what it was until I opened it up. And when I began to read the stories, I saw the colors, but most importantly, my son's reaction to this book that we're going to talk about a little later. I'm telling you, it's amazing, it's inspiring. But first, we want to know the author, the writer, the creator of this book. So once again, your name is
Crystal Boateng.
And you are Ghanaian.
Yes.
100%.
That's right. I like to call myself as a Ghanaian born but American raised because I've spent a majority of my life in America. Yes, but 100% Ashanti. Yes.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
So you are Ghanaian, but you said you are American raised.
Yes.
Tell us about maybe, so when did you go to America? Where did you go? And what was the purpose?
Sure. All right. So I moved to the U.S. around the age of like 12, 13. I went with my two older brothers. So my father, he had spent a lot of time in the U.S. He came to the U.S. back in the 60s. So growing up, we knew a lot about the U.S. And, when we got to that age, right around like that teenage years, he felt like it was the right time for us to go, start our high school education in the U.S. So we went over there to live with some relatives for a little bit. And then both my father and my mother joined us. And then, we've been there ever since.
So now, which part of the state you moved to?
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
That's right.
That was your entry gate into. So you came from warm, tropical weather Ghana to frigid Massachusetts.
Yeah, and it was actually in February, so it was really cold. Yeah.
Walk us through what were you thinking when you arrived? Maybe some of the things that you saw, adjustments, and all of that.
Yeah. Since I said my father spent a lot of time here. My mother also came to the U.S. when she was 17, turned 18 here. So I knew about America, right? But not like the reality that I faced, right? So, like I said, my brothers and I I started middle school, my brother started high school, and it was, like the real world out there. It's, Massachusetts, people are very liberal, so very open, but as we got a little, integrated into the system, we started to notice, some of the disparities. So that I started to notice that because in Ghana, okay, maybe you do notice that, right? Like depending on the neighborhood, but I feel like it's not that obvious.
So you were 13 when you moved there.
Yes.
Talk to me about what was the biggest adjustment for you? Because you mentioned you saw disparities between black and white, but I can imagine being raised in Ghana. I don't know, but did you have a consciousness that you were black per se?
Yeah. No, like I said, in Ghana, that's something you don't think about, obviously. But yeah, so in the U.S., it was so obvious. Adjustment, I would say one of the things that I adjusted very quickly was my accent. So usually when I speak, people, whether I'm here in Ghana or in the U.S., people cannot identify that I'm Ghanaian. A lot of times at work, people are like, oh, when I say that I'm Ghanaian, they're like, oh, you don't have an accent. So that was one thing. And I don't know how I did it. I don't know. But I noticed that adjusted really, really fast. And I think it was because of that negative perception that people have of Africans in America. And so once I started to notice that I wanted to hide that identity, I wanted to hide that part of me. And that went on for quite a bit, all the way up, up until college. That's when that switched. Because when I went to college, I went to an all-women's college in Massachusetts, and there are a lot of Ghanaians.
Really?
Okay, when I say a lot, maybe 10 in each, graduating class.
Wow. That
go there almost every year. And so I started to realize, I'm like, oh, okay, the Ghanaian students here are very smart. People respect them, so maybe I can open up, right? So yeah, adjustments. That was definitely one of the things. I was trying to hide myself, but yeah.
And what were some of maybe the things that were the overwhelmingly, let's say, great things of wow, this is the America, right? That
the hamburgers, the pizza. I mean, as a kid, like that's the type of stuff that you're like, oh my goodness, this is awesome. Like all the food. Not to say that I lacked food in Ghana, but you know what I mean. I don't know. So for me, I've always loved learning, loved reading. So one of the things that I didn't really have, growing up, I always had books at the house, but there were no libraries that I could visit, right? But then in the U.S., like there are libraries everywhere. So that was one thing that I loved. I'm like, every Saturday I had my library card. I could go to the library and get books. So that's one thing that I really loved.
So you went to all women's school.
Yep.
Now, what did you study?
Sure. So I majored in political science and French.
Wow.
And people always ask me, what in the world are you going to do with that? So French I double majored in that because I started learning French in Ghana. So from the age, I want to say like 8 or so, I had been, learning French. So was, very passionate about French. Political science, I've always wanted to be a lawyer. So since I think I was like 5 years old, I wanted to be a lawyer. And so political science, that's where that came from. And then after that, I went on to law school. And while I was in law school, I also got my MBA as well. So I have a JD MBA.
Hey, you're like that typical African immigrant story of like, you're not playing around.
No, education, I mean, like that, it's just, I love learning, that's just who I am. And then my parents always encouraged me. My mother, especially always told me, she said, Crystal, just keep going, until you feel like you're fulfilled. And that's what I did. So, I got a law degree at an MBA. So I think I'm fulfilled right now. So.
Okay.
Yes.
So you have a law degree, you have an MBA.
Yes.
And for some folks who are hearing this, they may have the perception of like, you literally made it, right? You accomplished the American dream, the Ghanaian dream, the African dream. You have everything. But we're in Ghana now, and off camera we were talking about that passion that you have, that real passion. So let's dive into that now. But you say you have this passion.
Yes.
And I really want to get into this because I'm telling you, the book is just really, really, really amazing.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about this book.
Sure. All right. So Afia the Ashanti Princess, A Visit to the Motherland. The inspiration why I decided to write it. So this is I'm not going to call it my COVID project because I don't want to give it that title. It's my passion project. So as I mentioned, like growing up, I loved reading. And now, I'm a mother of 2. I have, my daughter. The book is actually, dedicated to her. I get a little emotional talking about it. So she's 4 years old, almost turning 5, and she loves to read. So what I wanted to do during, the lockdown, we were at home, and I was working remotely, she's home, I'm homeschooling her. My goal was to teach her how to read. But anyway, so Whitney, she loves like identifying with characters in the books that she reads. One book, for example, Sold Away by Lupita, when we read that book, she's like, oh, mommy, that's me. Because, the dark-skinned girl looked just like her. So then I was like, all right, let me find more books like that will, like get her interested in reading. So I started looking, like, princess stories. I found one. It was just, And so it's like, well, African princess, nothing. Ghanaian princess, nothing. So it's like, you know what? Why don't I create a book? Let me write a book, because then she'll identify with the character, because it would be about her. So it was like sometime in June, in the summertime of last year, I got this idea. I woke up one day, I told my mom about it. She's like, oh, it's a great idea. So that's how it started. I just wanted to write a book about an Ashanti princess. And so as it evolved, I spent a lot of time talking to my mother, and she was telling me about like my family history. So the book, it talks about a little girl, her parents, she lives abroad. I don't say the United States because I want everyone all around the world in the diaspora to relate to it, whether you're based in the UK, Australia, or wherever. I want you to be able to relate to this, right? So I don't mention that, but I do mention that she lives abroad somewhere. And her grandmother, her Nana, comes to visit, and she brings all these gifts, and, she tells her about Ghana. And then she finds out one day, she's like, well, are there any princesses who look like me? Because all the princess stories she reads are these Disney princesses who don't look like her.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so her mother's like, yeah, actually your great-grandmother was a queen of some, like a little village in the Ashanti region. And so it sparked her interest. Her Nana was like, all right, come visit me in Ghana. And so anyway, the book is about female empowerment, right? So I linked it to the story of Yasantua. I don't think there are any children's books about Yasantua, at least not to my knowledge. If they're out there, please let me know. This book is not about Yasantua, but there's a part, the great-grandmother is supposed to be Yasantua. And so I am not related to Yasantua, but what I found out when I visited my grandmother was that her father, who's my great-grandfather, went to the Yasantua War.
Wow.
So he was actually an Ashanti, one of the chiefs in one of the Ashanti villages. He went to that Yasantua War.
Wow.
So through this project, I learned about my family history too.
Wow.
So
let me ask you a question then, because I think this is really important because you as a Ghanaian, you have this piece of history, but then there's even a deeper history that you're realizing as you're writing this book. What does that do for you, like personally, to know I have a lineage that literally is connected to something that is great?
It's just amazing because, like I said, I didn't know this about my family history. I had no idea. I mean, like, I knew that my great-grandfather was like some chief somewhere in the Ashanti region, but like I had no idea that he actually was part of the Yasantua War. And so for me to discover this, I mean, it means the world to me. So my daughter, right, she's only 4, so she doesn't quite understand it. But when she meets people here in Ghana, they ask her, what's your name? She'll say, Midinde. She'll actually say, Midinde Efia the Ashanti Princess, which means my name is Efia the Ashanti Princess.
Wow.
Like, she's owning it, right?
Wow.
And that's at the age of 4. And I think it's really important to establish, that's what I want to build for her and my son.
So that piece of that history that you're talking about is so important, right? Somebody watching this that may say, really, what's really the big deal? You can say that you went there to America, you had a great life, and now maybe you have the privilege to write this book. But why is this really important? Who cares? As long as you have money, you're successful.
Yeah. So there's so much more to this, right? So what's the big deal, right? So I wanted to create something for kids to know that there's a place where you belong and you are more than just a statistic or, watching something in the news, hearing about, Black people doing all these things. Like there's so much more to it, right? Like you're royalty, basically, not to say like, yes, not everyone who's like, taken from Africa is like king or queen, but just knowing, I feel like just knowing where you come from just makes you feel like you are somebody. And that's important. So for me, the message, right, what's the big deal? Why? It's important for our kids to know. Learn about your family history. Parents, tell your kids about family history. Yes, not everyone is related to some king or queen, but really, though, it's important for kids to be proud of who they are. Because once you know where you come from, everything that goes on after you, I think it's just, it really sets you up for success. After you know really where you come from, like, you don't allow certain things to get to you, right? Because you're like, I know who I am. Like, I'm proud. I walk with my head held up high. Yeah. So, yeah.
So, for individuals that are right now, maybe they're like yourself, where they're who knows where they're going to be watching this from. Let's say they've gone abroad and they have accomplished what people view as the certain levels of success, or let's just say they're striving en route to success. What would some of your encouragement be for them who have a vision and want to see something like this happen? How would you inspire them to get that done?
I would say just go for it. There's never a right time, never the right, opportunity. Just go for it. If there's something in your heart that you feel passionate about doing, just do it. But one thing I would say, don't try to do something that you're like, oh, I want to make this like huge impact on the world. Start small. I wrote this book. I didn't think that anyone outside of my family would actually appreciate it. But then when I wrote it, so the illustrator is actually from Bulgaria. Yeah, she's Bulgarian. Gabby. She's never been to Africa before. I'm sure she had no idea about Ghana even before she started working with me. But a friend of mine from college who had written a children's book recommended her. And so she read the script. She was like, oh, this is actually nice. And she brought the story to life. A lot of people like compliment the illustrations because they're so colorful.
They're really nice.
She did a really great job. So I was like, all right. And then I had a couple of other friends, they read it. They're not Ghanaian. So they're like, oh, this is cool. So, but the whole thing, what I'm trying to make is, I didn't write it. I didn't think that like people would read. And then I gave you a copy, and you told me you liked it. Like I've received compliments from people, like random people. And so, but if you start off thinking like I want to make this great impact, I think it's going to hinder you.
I had a mentor, my first job out of college, and shout out to Cheryl Richards. And she said a quote that I never forgot. She said, "It's always better to have progressive improvement over postponed perfection."
Oh, yes. Yep. Progress over perfection.
So I'm sure folks now are asking, okay, so where can I get this book?
Yeah.
So where can they get it?
So it's currently available on Amazon. And it's also available on barnesandnobles.com, but I'm trying, so for people based in Ghana, I know shipping costs to Ghana from Amazon is very pricey, but I'm working to actually get this book in like schools here in Ghana, but for right now it's just through Amazon or Barnes and Noble, if you're outside. Yeah.
Something else that I noticed that was really interesting about this book is how you educate people. It's almost like a tree lesson in the book, right?
Yes.
So tell us more about that.
Sure. So so there's this page where, if she's getting ready to go to Ghana, and she calls up her cousin, and her cousin's like, oh, well, if you're going to Ghana, there's some few phrases that you should learn. And so there's some few phrases here. And so my daughter, actually, we did a little like tree lesson on her YouTube channel where I say, I think I said the English word, and they should say like the tree word. And it's really because I want parents reading this book to get something out of it, and also kids to get something out of it too. And my daughter, she's been in Ghana for like a month and a half now, and she's able to say some phrases here and there. And so yeah, I think that's like my message. Like please, whatever language it is that you speak, whether it's Ga, Fanti, or whatever, if you're abroad, I think it's important for your kids to learn that, because you don't want them to come to Ghana and like not understand.
It's embedding a deep seed of heritage and pride in the minds of, you wrote it with your daughter in mind, but so many other folks. As I said, I read it to my son, and he enjoyed the book, and him being in Ghana, he can relate to it so much more. So yeah. In addition to the Amazon and the Barnes and Nobles, you also have a YouTube channel, right?
Yes.
Talk to about the YouTube channel and what you're doing.
In the book, it talks about if you're getting ready to go to Ghana and then being in Ghana. So now that we're in Ghana, we're also posting videos. So it's called Ifya the Ashanti Princess. That's the name of the channel. And we post videos about the things that she's doing here in Ghana. And so, yeah, it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's just like a mother-daughter thing, and my son too, yes. Definitely, I know people want to hear about Kofi, so I'm definitely not going to disappoint. I have a few projects in the works, and this is going to be a series. So Ifya the Ashanti Princess series, and just, life as Ifya explores the world.
Wow.
And Kofi too. And Kofi. Let's not forget about Kofi.
So thank you so much for being with me. I appreciate it. And once again, all the information will be in the description. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe. Till next time, peace.
Thank you. Bye.